All right, welcome back. Episode 35, Mono Prescription. My name is Dr. Deepak Dukar.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Toll.
And we are talking to Leslie Marcus today.
A big doctor episode.
Big. She's basically an online doctor because she has an MD on TV, basically.
Correct.
And she's the one of the highest level producers at the Doctors TV show. She runs the investigative journalism unit there and does the most ridiculous Lois Lane type pieces of medicine.
So if you are a doctor and you're listening and you have unscrupulous business practices, she's
the one
that's going to find you.
She's going to find
you.
Yeah, she's going to put you out of business.
You're going to be on the news. And then when she puts you on the doctor show, probably you'll just have more patients who are interested in seeing you. So.
Right. So be careful.
So there you go.
But I don't know if that's the scariest part of this week. Leslie's
There's a lot
scary.
of scary stuff going on.
Some weird stuff.
This year. And
so LA this week.
My hometown of Beverly Hills.
Yep.
Under attack.
Yeah, under attack. I think it's the right word.
Yeah.
Under attack. So someone at Il Pastel, one of the
these
best
are like these classic places I grew up with, blocks from my childhood home.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
Someone got just in broad daylight.
Yep. Shot.
At
Il Pastel, one of the nicest Italian restaurants in Beverly Hills. Shot in order for them to steal what sounds like a Richard Mille $500,000 watch. Which is insane.
Right. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if it's because of, people are desperate with the pandemic or why or what's going on, but it seems like there's been a lot more of this type of brazen robbery attempts in LA recently.
Right. In the past week, we've seen Lady Gaga's dog, Walker, get shot. We've seen the El Pastel shooting.
Yep.
We've seen the Toca Madera robbing at a very famous restaurant in West Hollywood that a lot of celebrities go to, all within the past 7 days.
And I know some other business owners who've had their places robbed or attempted to be robbed also pretty recently too.
Gosh, yeah, it's scary.
Scary.
Be safe. Don't really know what else to say about that one.
Yeah,
it's tough. And then Texas is making a lot of headlines this week.
Yeah, no more masks.
COVID.
No more masks. COVID is over in Texas. I think we're all anxious to have no masks.
Yeah.
I think very likely California would be the slowest no more mask recommender.
Right.
So I think we're getting close to like being able to, I think, be fully reopened pretty comfortably. The vaccines have now vaccinated the at-risk people. Mostly, we're not quite there, but a significant chunk. So it's not as if we're at herd immunity yet where there won't be people getting sick, but if people get sick, less likely to be, in the hospital dying sort of thing.
Just because we have time on our side now.
Yeah,
people have gotten infected or gotten the vaccine enough numbers now.
Yeah, and the at-risk, the elderly people have been vaccinated. Right. So even if, 20, 30-year-olds are getting it and the numbers of infected don't drop like to zero, it'll make the hospitals less full, which was the purpose of a lot of the economic things like no restaurants. So to me, if I was running things, I would say I would feel pretty comfortable back to opening things. People should still wear masks, in my opinion, especially, if you're at a big event, a baseball game or whatever.
Yes,
I think you should be able to go to a baseball game probably, but with the mask on.
With the mask on,
And people be smart. If you haven't been vaccinated, maybe you don't want to be at the game if you're at risk. And people can start to really, we have enough information that people can do activities based on their own risk tolerance, what underlying conditions they have, whether or not they've been vaccinated.
Agreed.
The government's been very scared, I've noticed, to say officially that even two vaccinated people should be able to hang out with each other.
Yeah, maskless.
And I don't know why. What do you think? What's their hesitation?
I think it's like, the doctors that we're going to talk about later today who overprescribe medications. I think they're just covering their bases. They would rather you wear a mask than say not to and accidentally get in trouble because someone dies.
I think that's it too. So I've had many patients come to me in the last 2 weeks saying, it's a miracle, we're vaccinated. My husband and I have been waiting for a year. I haven't seen my kids, haven't seen my grandkids. We're vaccinated. Can we see my grandkids?
Right.
And then I'll say, well, your grandkids aren't vaccinated.
Right. Because it's hard because you don't want to say definitively.
Fine, I can't see my grandkids, but can I see my brother who lives on the East Coast and he's been vaccinated? Can we see each other and be maskless? And then
I think if
I
two
think the
people
answer is yes.
I think two people vaccinated, the answer is yes, you can be maskless because the risk of it is going to be so low. But I think if you're vaccinated and you're with someone non-vaccinated, I think masks should still be in play.
Yeah, I mean, what's weird to me is that the Pfizer study and the Moderna study basically say you cannot get you could get COVID theoretically a very mild case, but you almost can't get very sick from it,
right?
Based on the trial.
Right.
So I don't know. I think we're going to be in this kind of we're too scared to say we're not scared thing.
Yeah.
But no masks, I think, is pretty crazy. So.
Yeah. But overall, I think we're heading in the right trajectory as a country. So
I think 2 to 3 months, and we should be fully open.
Yeah, I think so too. I think summer is going to be really fun.
It'll be
roaring
crazy.
20s.
It will be. It will be.
Take it back to your college days, Jeff.
I'm not that old. I wasn't alive in the roaring 20s. But thank you. But yeah, I think it'll be a very, if you're 25 years old right now, you're looking forward to
You're looking for a fun summer.
I'm looking forward to traveling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting back out there.
Getting places. And
yeah.
It'll be nice.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to bring on Leslie Marcus, one of the highest producers at the Doctor Show. He's going to just break it down. Lois Lane of Medicine, how she goes after people hardcore and investigates everyone. It's crazy. We're back, episode 35, and today we have a super special guest.
Amazing.
Yeah, one of my really dear friends and hugely successful producers, Leslie Marcus. I want to give a proper introduction because Leslie, it's insane all that you do. So you are the senior investigative producer and reporter at The Doctors, obviously one of the most popular medical shows of all time.
Yep. Iconic show.
Iconic. And on that show, you're the developer and creator of the Doctors Investigate franchise, which is basically a weekly on-air investigative reports, which is super cool because they never had this. You created this segment on the show, and it's been, in my opinion, one of the coolest parts of the show because you go in super deep looking at really cool, controversial things like millennial health crisis, dangerous driving, toxic toys, DIY cosmetic procedures, fake CBD, counterfeit opioids. I don't even know what that is. Ketamine clinics, black market pain pills, urgent care centers you went after. It's insane, the kind of stuff that you're kind of putting yourself out there. Do you have any death threats?
Luckily not yet. But there was a time when I made my Instagram private because I was just a little bit scared one of the stories I did, I'd have some haters. But got to put it out there.
Yeah, you're like Lois Lane of medicine. You're like going really hard. Some of your investigative journalists, I feel like you're really pushing the boundaries. Yeah,
I felt the pressure myself.
So tell us about this. So you guys had a potential story that you guys were talking about. What was that?
Well, obviously we knew each other already. Yep. We had a good relationship. And so I think that was an important part of the beginning of the process. So at the beginning of the vaccination process, there were a lot of headlines and stories around either celebrities or wealthy people trying to get the vaccine ahead of the line. And that was like a big story. So she approached me seeing if I knew anything about it or had anything to say. And, I think you looked into it, and what did you find? And I'll tell you what I thought.
Well, it's a great headline, right? Oh, people are getting the vaccine through the black market. This huge flourishing black market is out there for the vaccine. It's like this great story. But when I really started looking into it, I'm like, is it just a headline and that's where the story ends? Because what's the bigger story here? So when Jeff and I spoke, he was like, this isn't a real story. And I was taking notes like feverishly. I was like, okay, so maybe 20 people got this vaccine in the black market and they're being made examples of in the media, right? From Canada, from different places. They took their private jet here to like indigenous areas where they got the vaccine, these casino owners, like very small number of cases of people that made headlines, but it wasn't that big of a situation. And there are bigger problems when it comes to getting the vaccine. So Jeff and I talked about that, and I didn't really pursue that black market story.
What happened was, so I got a call from LA Times investigative reporter asking, I have a lot of, CEOs and wealthy people as patients. And she asked me, are these people getting the vaccine early? And I said, no. And she said, well, aren't they offering, all sorts of stuff? And I said, yes, but there's clear guidelines. And furthermore, the government is the only people who can distribute the vaccine. So there are not, it doesn't exist that there's private doctors giving people vaccines for
Right,
money. It's like,
right.
it's a non-story. It can't happen because doctors don't have the vaccine to, even if they wanted to, they literally don't have it. And so I thought a much bigger story, which eventually got more news, but that first week when the vaccine was rolling out was the fact that it was almost impossible to sign up for an appointment. The fact they were forcing the most at-need people are 90-year-olds who don't have, access to internet, can't drive themselves, and they were forcing these people to figure out how to. So that was affecting hundreds of thousands or millions of people. This other story of people trying to get the vaccine early was affecting a dozen people, no people. And so it was just irrelevant. But it got on the headline. I was on the front page of like the LA Times, Yahoo News, CNN. Everyone picked up this story of a non-story. So I was just
story of a non-story.
Because with journalism, that's a huge thing. Like I did a little bit of training in journalism. You trained properly, obviously. You're a real journalist. And as a journalist, it's always you're balancing between hype and ethics, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much has the last 10 years changed the clickbaiting? Because I think there was a time in which, you became famous as a journalist for like this amazing investigative story that broke open. I'm trying to think of the
Lois Lane
or Aaron Brockovich or whatever.
Yes.
Where you expose this scandal where thousands of people are getting toxic poisoning or whatever, and that's the way you break in through like a health journalism. And then now it's like, oh, someone got plastic surgery at this place, and trying to get clicks.
Clickbait,
It's all about the clicks.
Yeah, it's all about the clicks, right?
The industry has completely changed. Long-form journalism, while I'm a huge fan of it, you have attention spans which are very weak right now, and people want constant stream of information. And long-form journalism takes a lot of time and a lot of research and a lot of resources and vetting and stuff like that. And I mean, people like quick turns, right? And if you have a really great headline, a shocking headline, it's going to get clicks, But I always say, what's the takeaway? Right? So it's like you can have a great headline, you can have a great tease, but is there any meat? Because if there's not any meat, then you're just wasting people's time. And I don't like doing that. At the end of the day, I want people to watch the investigations we do and talk to their friends about it. Or say, I didn't know that. And that's going to change my behavior going forward. Like have that conversation at Starbucks in the line there when you're waiting, the water cooler stories, right? So I do think there's still a place for long form journalism. But I also think that, like you said, it's very clickbaity.
Yeah, very clickbaity. And I think you've been doing journalism before social media was huge also. So how is that? Has that been significantly different now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we used to need to go to the library and like look up old newspapers on, what is it, the microfiche or whatever it's called?
Microfilm.
The microfilm. It's completely changed. We used to have VHS tapes that we'd run of, when I do my stand-ups in the field or whatever, we'd run them to this. I'm really dating myself right now, but we would run them to the studio, to make the live feed. I mean, everything changed. And then I remember when I was at SC, we had this program, they called it the Synergy Journalism Program, right? Where it was no longer, you're just going to do broadcast journalism. They're like, the market is changing. It's online, it's radio, it's print, and it's TV. And you're going to learn every single one. And every single one is different how you deliver your story, right? So you would write a story for the newspaper completely different than you'd write it for television or for online. It's just a different medium. Right. And so I had to write, I had to do my online website for my same stories as I did for my broadcasting, as I did for the paper. And it was intense, but they were on the right track. Absolutely. And I'm so glad I got that curriculum because it did turn into that. It's not just print.
I love that. And you trained at USC.
I did.
You did your bachelor's in media journalism or
in broadcast journalism. That's my major.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, what was your first journalism job?
Well, I did some work as a researcher at Dateline while I was still at SC. And then I moved on to the KNVC, that's local, the LA News, the investigative unit. And I have such great memories there. Like one of the executive producers, he used to be the executive producer at 60 Minutes. And there was the saddest story, I don't know if you remember, but there was the Santa Monica market and, where people go, the farmer's market, and this older man or whatever accidentally hit the brake, the gas on the car instead of the brakes. And he ran over all these people. Oh. And this executive producer made me go to his house, like the worst time of this man's life, and literally knock on the door and write a letter to try to book this gentleman to talk about, like what he was going through, because he didn't do that on purpose.
Right.
I was like, whoa, this is like completely like out of my element, but it like took me to another place. And I was like, okay, we can go after stories like this. We can go after big guests like this. And so that was an incredible experience. And then they let me take part in their investigations, which I think is kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I loved it so much. Like I'd wear undercover gear.
Wow.
But in news, it was different. Like you can do a lot and get away with a lot in news that you can't get away with on like a daytime talk show, because it's not a news entity.
Ooh.
So I could wear like undercover gear and stuff like that. And like we did a lot of cool stuff. And
so
then
the laws are different for a news show versus a daytime
with fair
talk show.
use and other
Really?
types of laws. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so then from there, I kind of took a break. I was like, I don't want to move to a small town. I'm in LA. I love LA. I want to go into fashion because I love fashion.
Huge
so
fashionista.
much.
Yeah.
And they've always did a push and pull with that. So I kind of did fashion for a little bit, and I was like, I need to go back to my calling. So, I got an interview in Las Vegas with the Fox affiliate there.
Wow.
And it was for their morning show. And I drove my little self out there, and I took writing tests, and I was like, oh my God, this is like college. They're giving me writing tests and they're timing me. I was going nuts. And I didn't think I did well, but don't ever doubt yourself. That's a lesson I learned, because I did get the job. And I packed my bags, I left everybody, and I moved to Vegas.
Wow.
And I was alone by myself, a young girl in Vegas. And that town is a crazy town. And I would wake up at 12:30 and go to work at 1 a.m. for the morning show. And I'd be done with my shift at 9 a.m. It was insane. I know.
Wait. So 12:30 at night?
In the morning.
In the morning is when you would start?
They do
Yes.
this.
Wow. Because you were preparing
It's
for the
live.
morning
The
show.
live show. The
Yeah.
show
Oh
went
my
on live at
gosh.
4:30 in the morning. So
That's
I wrote
You have to go
insane.
for like hair and makeup at 2 a.m.
No, I wasn't on air.
She was writing.
I was
Producing.
Yeah, I was
Got it.
producing.
Got
I
it.
was
Wow.
writing. Like
Got
it was
it.
crazy. And that was like boot camp.
And that was like the number one show in Vegas. Like
It
that was the morning show.
They had a really cool morning show. All the celebrities came there.
Wow.
Like they'd stop in Vegas, they'd stop at Fox. I met so many cool people there. And then I was like, I can't be here anymore. Vegas is great, but it's just like, it wasn't, I wanted to be closer to my family. And, it just so happened that the Fox affiliate, they were relaunching the Fox affiliate under the Tribune umbrella in San Diego, which is where my family was.
Wow.
And so I knocked on that door. I flew myself out to San Diego, and they were telling me how the set's going to be interactive and this. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool and creative. Like that's how my brain works. And I was like, I got to be here. Like they're trying new things. They're not just doing boring news. And I started there. I took a pay cut. I was living with the mom and the stepdad, and still kept my place in Vegas. And I made it work. And I did the morning show there too.
Morning show also. So you were still doing the night routine.
Like 2:30 in the morning. It was a little better.
Gosh.
And I moved myself up there from making, I don't want to even throw this out there,
Sounds
but I
like
think I was making $11 an hour.
Wow. Yeah, it's like residency.
And I moved myself to like running the whole show.
Wow.
And that's
And you were
how it
there. You were there
started.
for
I
about
was there
5
a
years.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
2008, 2014. It was the best time. I worked with the most incredible people there. Such amazing people.
Wow.
San Diego's a great place.
Wow. And when you were doing that, that was purely daily news. So the stories would change by the minute.
Well, it was a morning show.
Okay.
So I did a lot of the fun. So I made it like the Today Show or GMA of San Diego. And I built sets and just used the green screen any way I could, and just fashion shows and just anything you can imagine. I did hard hitting, but it was really a lot of fluff.
A little bit of fluff.
It's like what you're watching when you have your coffee.
Fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Wake up and relax just before you go
So
work.
we've talked about this. I worked at Good Morning America for a couple of months when I lived in New York City.
So cool.
During residency, I took a break and because I really wanted to do journalism. And I have so much respect for what you do.
Thank you.
Because when you watch and see how hard these producers, it's insane. Like I used to see this, the same thing you're saying. Because like we would show up at like 7 a.m. and make sure the story, like if they have any questions. But you guys had been up since 2 a.m., 1 a.m. and had been working and writing and rewriting the whole night. And then, the talent just walks in and reads the lines. The other thing I didn't realize, and I learned this when I was there, is, Diane Sawyer was there. And so I worked with her a lot, and which is so cool. It was just so
cool.
Even spending a few minutes with her a day was just so inspiring because she's just such an elegant, eloquent
Legend.
human. Yeah, she's just a legend. But it was interesting because even her, and this is where I didn't realize the producers have so much more authority and power on television than the talent does. And you don't realize that as a normal consumer.
I don't know.
You sit there and you're like, oh, well, Diane Sawyer must be deciding what she says. No. She has some say when she gets to that level as Diane Sawyer, but like the first 10 years, like whoever took over for her, he just walks in the studio and Leslie tells him, here's your script, read this, say this, don't say this. And it's all the producers. All the power came from the producers. And that's where it kind of woke me up to be like, whoa, maybe I don't want to be the talent. Maybe the production side is more interesting. So I have so much respect for producers because you guys literally create everything. The talent is just good at their acting skill, you know?
There's definitely, it's always been like a push and pull thing. Like I've always wanted to be behind the scenes producing, but then sometimes you want to get credit for your work,
yes.
And I've worked with legends like Arthel Neville,
Wow.
who helped launch the Fox station, the Fox affiliate. She came from Fox Network, and she came and launched it in San Diego. And that was incredible. I go out, I do the investigations, I do the stories, I bring her in to shoot a stand-up, to track, do the voice track. And we got nominated for Emmys locally in there. And she was incredible journalist. And it just got to a point that, it's nice to be able to write when you're writing your own work, to voice your own work,
Yes.
to front your own work, and like kind of get over that fear I had about being on camera and just, making it happen, which wasn't easy. It's not like somebody's like, here, go in front of the camera. That's not how this industry works at all, especially not in local.
Right. Yeah.
It's like there's definitely a division of church and state and local. If you're behind the scenes, you stay behind the scenes. You don't step on the anchor's toes and try to put yourself on air. So it's a very interesting industry in local news. But to your point, you have to have a relationship with your producer as a talent. You got to trust your producer.
Yeah.
You have to trust their vetting process, who they choose as guests, what stories they're going to lead with, like what's your competition leading with. If there's a big local story and you miss the boat on that, and you don't throw out the top of your show and go hard on that local story that's breaking news, you're going to lose all your viewers, and they're not going to come back the next day because they're like, that other station got the story. So there's a lot of trust that goes into the relationship with the producers and the on-air talent.
Wow. I don't think we're doing that with this podcast.
Yeah, we are. Come on. Hard-hitting news on this. The hardest hitting.
We got to ask the tough questions.
We should ask some tough questions. So how'd you end up with the doctors? Do you have an interest in medicine and health, or have you at least... I'm sure you've built one up over the time.
Yeah, I'm a mini doctor. I'm my TV MD now. Yeah.
Yes, definitely TV MD.
Well, funny you say that. I really, when I was in local news, I was trying to find an exit plan, right? Because I was like, this is awesome, but I've gone pretty much as far as I can go. And what's the next step for me? How am I either going to get back to LA or back to New York? Because there's not a lot of production in San Diego, unless I created a production company. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's just how it is. There's different markets, and New York is number 1 and LA is number 2. So I had Dr. Oz on the show, and I worked with his PR people, and it was like, not gonna lie, I had a lot of letdowns. I went to New York, I was supposed to have a meeting with them, and at the last minute, the executive producers had to go on a story and canceled, and the PR lady took me to lunch at Rockefeller Center, and she's like, I have to be honest with you, Leslie, we really like you, but you don't have a network pedigree. And, we like to hire people that have that started, at the bottom and then in a network setting, and then we promote from within. And that pissed me off. I was like, ew. Like I went to, how much I've done? How much I do locally? And I went to USC, and you think because I don't have a network pedigree that I'm not good enough to go work on your show? It bothered me. And I think it lit a fire under my butt. And so interestingly, how it kind of worked is I'd have all these guests on at Fox, and I'd have different people that had books and diet books and stuff like that. And they knew people at the doctors. And I was like, can I drop your name and send an email? I got an interview. I didn't get hired the first time by the executive producer that was there. It was like a Skype interview or something. It's years ago. And I was like, I really need to be there in person to make an impact. And then the show got 2 new executive producers. They let the other EP, his contract ended. And I was like, I'm going for it again. Let me go for this again. And I did. And I sent them an email, and they invited me into LA. And I remember I just sat in their office. They're like, what don't you do, Leslie? Like they thought I was like, is she serious? Like because there's unions in LA. You can't do props. You can't do this. You can't direct. You can't do all that. You're a producer. That's what you do, And they're like, we really like you, but you're going to have to make us some shows to show us what you can do. I was like, oh, you want me to make you shows? And I was like, oh, that's fun. A challenge. Okay. So I was like, they're like, yeah, make us 2 shows, 7 segments, do whatever you want with it. We do 7 segments. It can be a potpourri show with a bunch of different things in it, but just show us what you got. So I was like, all right, you're going to see what I got. Yeah. And I sat in my newsroom till 5 a.m., like 3 weekends in a row. And I would have 2 monitors up. One where I'd research what they've done on the show, because I didn't want to pitch them something they've already done. Right. And I'd research new topics on my other monitor. And I built them shows from soup to nuts. I wrote the scripts. I booked the guests. I talked about what I wanted to do with the set and the production. I mean, I was like, in my mind, I was like, if I manifested it, and I know you believe in this, Deepak, it's like, in my mind, I was like, if these executive producers are going to read my work, they're going to be like, who is this chick in San Diego? I'm going to pluck her right now because she has something special. And so I used my talents to get me to the job. And it happened like I envisioned it in my head. This manifestation, this is like the realest manifestation I've ever had in my life. But I saw myself on that stage at the doctor's because I had visited it before. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was behind the scenes. I was like, I got to be here. Oh my God, this is so bigger than, local news. I got to be here. It's Paramount Studios. And I was like, I envisioned being on the set and I got the call. Wow. And they called me and they're like, when can you start? And I was like bawling my eyes out. I called my mom and I was in the parking lot at Fox. I could cry thinking about it because it feels like yesterday.
Wow. And I can attest to that because every time I've been on, thankfully to you, Leslie, being an amazing show producer and getting me on. But every time you drive into Paramount, it just feels spectacular. It's Hollywood. Like it's not like it's effing Hollywood. Like it's real and it's such an exciting thing. And then you get on Doctors and you're on that stage and you see like there's 1,700 cameras everywhere. Like there's lights in places you wouldn't even imagine. And like there's a live audience. Like it's Hollywood. Like it's real.
So it looks a lot like our set here.
It's very similar to our set here.
So anyway,
that's super. And so since you've been on the Doctors, you're famous now for being kind of, I joke around, I call you Lois Lane of medicine because you kind of go after the hardest hitting stories. So what are some of like the craziest ones that you've done where you felt like, wow, I'm really pushing the edge here?
Gosh, I remember a couple years ago when CBD had just, become popular and some people didn't even know what CBD was, that it was a non-psychoactive component of cannabis, the cannabis plant. And so I had to kind of explain that that's like how far we've come,
Right. People thought you were just talking about weed at that point.
Nobody really knew. So I had to kind of explain it. But I was like, there's no really regulation. Like nobody's checking to see if these CBD products, the water, the this, the that, have CBD in them.
Yeah.
So I was like,
we talk about this all the time about the lack of oversight on skin products.
Skin products too.
Yeah,
so I was like, let me blow
stuff.
the lid off this before this industry blows up. And I worked with CannaSafe, this lab that I had worked with before on a project, I think, or I had wanted to work with. And I bought so many different CBD products. It was so popular. It was in water. It was in this. It was in that. And like, it was crazy. The test results, like it was all over the map. Stuff didn't say what it had in it. So it's almost like a placebo effect. You're putting this stuff on, you feel better because, and especially, well, we know with like a placebo effect, if you're puncturing the skin, that's going to be like a greater effect than if you're slathering on a cream or whatever. Right. But still, there is an effect. That was a big one. And then the CBD market blew up and, I was like, wow, we were really ahead of the curve on that. And then my urgent care investigation.
Yeah, tell us about that. That one was crazy because you actually went into these urgent cares as a patient multiple times.
I did because so there's this popular urgent care, I won't say the name of it, but by Paramount, and everybody used to go there. And it was so funny that I went there and I felt like they were just trying to throw the kitchen sink at me, like give me 20 million different types of antibiotics and an injection of steroid here and this and that. Like, I didn't know what was, like, I didn't feel like I had the diagnosis. They told me a sinus infection or something. I've never had a sinus infection. Like, okay. And so these antibiotics made me worse. Because I had too much in my body and it wasn't until I went to the dentist and she looked at my mouth. She's like, how many antibiotics are you on right now? Like you killed all the good bacteria in your body. And I was like, this isn't cool. And so I started researching and I asked every single person that went to that urgent care at work. I was like, what was your diagnosis? And what'd they give you? Same exact diagnosis. Same one. I was like, how can everybody have sinus infections and be on the same medication? So then I went to a bunch of different urgent cares all around LA and I presented with the same symptoms. Like I said I had the same symptoms or whatever and wanted to see how many were going to give me unnecessary antibiotics. And I got most of the places gave me unnecessary antibiotics. I wasn't sick.
Wow.
And so we all know taking unnecessary antibiotics leads to antibiotic resistance, can cause problems in your body, in your gut, all sorts of issues. And so I used it as like a lesson. It's like, a lot of people go to urgent cares like, I am getting antibiotics. If I don't get antibiotics, I'm going to write a Yelp review and say this place sucks.
I think that's, yes. And I agree. I think part of it's difficult from that doctor's point of view. They think that's why you're there, basically, because a lot of people do go somewhere because they think they need antibiotics, which they actually don't, for like a cold or virus. And then the doctor thinks they're making the customer happy by giving you antibiotics. So,
because the doctor just says go home and supportive therapy.
Like when I see someone in my office who has similar symptoms, like cold symptoms, I know I can follow up. So I can say, hey, I think this is a virus, but if you don't get better in like 3 or 4 days, call me, text me, and you may need antibiotics at that point if you don't get better. But in an urgent care, they can't follow up with you. So they just are like, as you say, and they want to get you in and out in 2 minutes too and not really have to talk to you very much. So it makes it a lot easier when they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then tell us about the other one that I thought was super interesting. You did a show where you created your own supplement. Tell it, what the hell is this about?
Oh my God. I have to remember how this kind of started. But the supplement industry, I still think a lot of people don't know how the supplement industry runs.
I'm big on that. I've been trying to talk about this, so I'm glad that you're here to actually explain what my theory.
1994, Deshay came in and changed the whole industry, opened up the floodgates for these manufacturers, like making it very easy to put their products on the market with, dubious claims.
Who's Deshay?
Dietary supplement and health and education.
Okay, so some sort of act. Okay,
yes, exactly. It's an acronym for it. And so it was passed by, Congress or whatever, and it opened up the floodgates.
It was supposed to make it easier and you don't need like FDA to check on the product in order to be approved as a supplement.
Right. So you have all these companies that can put anything out on the market right now with dubious claims, and I wanted to see how far I could take it. So you go online and there's these, this is like when the booty became really popular like a few years ago. And I was like, online there's booty enhancing creams and booty enhancing supplements. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this root is going to make my butt grow? Like, really? So I was like, well, let me see if I can make my own supplement. So I made a supplement. I literally called it Build a Booty in a bottle.
Oh my God.
And it was by LMM. I made like a fictitious business name, which was like my initials or LAM, Leslie Vargas. And I found a manufacturer who was like, I'll throw anything you want in it. I could slap on the FDA logo on there. We can put organic, anything you want. We just put it on the bottle, and I got it all on the bottle. And then I built a fake Instagram around it where I did before and afters. I photoshopped the pictures. I was like, I built booty in 2 weeks. Like, I got some clicks. Like, people, I think, wanted to buy Build Booty. And I couldn't believe it. And then basically I had this whole debate. I invited I think there's a lobby, not a lobby group, but there's a trade group that represents the supplement manufacturers. I was like, you know what? Let's bring them in. Let's have a big debate about this. Like, why was it so easy for me to do this? If it's easy for me, it's easy for everybody else to do this. And who knows if the stuff is even safe in there. And that's the bigger thing. Or if there's counterindications when you're taking these supplements, you're on other medications. Like, people aren't that savvy when it comes to ingredients and medications. Like, they're not doctors.
Yeah.
So... yeah.
What's crazy.
It's really scary.
That is
a lot
crazy.
of people, what's scary is a lot of people who are sort of like anti-Western medicine and they're afraid they don't want to take actual medications that are good for them. They're all about supplements, and they're on 57 different supplements. And they have none of us have any idea what are in them. And the crazy thing to me too is that a lot of times, even well-intentioned people trying to make supplements that they think are good, they don't know what all these things are, what these ingredients are.
Because they're not manufacturing
So
it.
just like last week, we had as our guest Nikki DeRusse, one of my close friends who is a makeup entrepreneur. And basically she was explaining the same thing where she has chemists working on stuff, and they intentionally don't put stuff that they know is bad, but in a way, we don't know.
But they are putting products that might be bad, but they're just not proven yet. So but they're allowed to use it, and so they use it knowing that it may not be the right thing to use, but they still use it. And that's the complex part about makeup.
When it comes to makeup and skincare, those products might be banned in the EU, and they're not here because.
Could be.
It's not saying all supplements are bad, but at the end of the day, you don't know the manufacturing process. How do you know that it's
I totally agree. At the end of the day, they're more likely to be unsafe than medications which at least are checked by the FDA. The FDA makes mistakes, and sometimes drugs are recalled, or they very highly regret that they had some medication that has side effects or whatever. But at least they're looking into it and it gets recalled. A lot of the supplements,
there's no recall process.
There's no way to know.
Yeah, unless something really bad happens.
I got to tell you about this recent investigation I did about a supplement, which will blow your mind. It's about tianeptine, which is
I saw this.
So our country is like in the grips of an opioid crisis. We've been in this for a while.
Yeah.
And so then there was Kratom. And I did an investigation about Kratom, which is like the herbal equivalent to an opioid, hits the same receptors in the brain, right? And it's legal in a lot of different states. You can get Kratom tea. You can go to a Kratom bar. Like I've tried it myself. I went to North Carolina one summer, like for a few days, and I went to a Kratom bar and like everybody's sipping Kratom tea. It gets you so messed up. Like it's not the business. You know what I mean? If you're like just do like, I would never recommend somebody just do Kratom every day. But some people swear it got them off opioids. It got them off being alcoholics. Like, so I had a debate about that. But then in certain states, they ban Kratom, right? So like Alabama banned Kratom. And then all of a sudden, this unapproved drug shows up on these supplement bottles being sold at gas stations, which is tianeptine, which is an antidepressant that was approved about 50 years ago in France and other countries. But it was never approved here because we figured out that it hits the mu opioid receptor in the brain. It also affects, I think, glutamate because it's an antidepressant. And so we never approved it. These other countries are like, well, it's addictive. So we're going to like cut back on how much, we're giving to people, right? And so they regulated it, but it's unregulated. So these supplement manufacturers have the wherewithal. They're so smart to be, predatory in nature. And they're like, let's target states that have now made Kratom a Schedule 1, right? And we're going to bring this unapproved drug, put it in these supplements, get it at gas stations, throw it at people, say it's for energy, say it's nootropic, say it's this, say it's that, that it's going to help with pain. And people are just picking up bottles and you're already in a place that's so affected by this opioid crisis and you're throwing another opioid at them and they are like, well, this drug is insane, okay?
Wow.
This drug is... I tried one of these because I have to understand, like when I'm talking to people, this
Lois
one guy
Lane.
showed me a bag of pills. He's like, I was taking 150 a day. I tried one pill and I was like, how is this legal? Like, how is this okay? Like, I can totally understand, whereas an addict would be like going to the gas station. I called it gas station heroin and grabbing bottles of this stuff.
Wow.
And it's so hard to get it off of store shelves. It's so difficult. It can take years.
And this is technically a substance that's, I actually watched this episode and you talked about how it was technically like 2 years ago, the FDA sent letters saying that it's not supposed to be on the shelves anymore.
Manufacturers.
Yeah, and yet 2 years later, it's still on the shelves.
They'll tweak, it's like chemical whack-a-mole. These manufacturers are smart, they're savvy. They'll tweak a chemical compound in it or just a little bit and be like, it's a new drug. It's a new health supplement.
Wow. See, I always talk about how stupid people don't know they're stupid, and that's what makes life so difficult, right? But it's like one of those things, like, to most people listening, they're like, oh yeah, no one would buy gas station supplements. Like, to most of us, that's so obvious. But yet to a large sector,
they must be selling because they're in every gas station.
Every single gas station. And there's people buying, like you said, because, but the people who buy them, to them, it's not obvious that you shouldn't buy gas station supplements.
They seem benign, right?
Yes.
It's like in a gas station, buy an energy drink, pop that.
Great boner pill in the gas station.
Right. The sex tiger pills.
Yeah, did we just find out that those pills at the gas station have like real Viagra in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a story that just came out.
Wow.
Adulterated, supplements.
Wow. No,
at a gas
crazy.
station. And it's the saddest story, and I don't want to bring it down, but this one little kid, I talked to the mom, she lost her son to this drug.
God.
I guess he went to the gas station with the dad, and he's like, he has migraines. Do you have anything behind the counter for his migraines? And the guy's like, try this. The kid takes the bottle of tianeptine in his room, I guess in the morning, his sister found him dead. And the empty bottle of tianeptine was by his bed. There were no other drugs in his system in the toxicology report. He was just popping the tianeptine.
Which is over the counter.
Wow.
And
that's
supplement.
so sad.
So yeah, like it's just an example. This stuff is not, you see these supplements even advertised on Instagram.
Right. Well, you did a whole segment too on COVID IV cures. A lot of people have been promoting these IV. Jeff obviously hates this too, but that's why it's a great conversation. Yeah, Jeff is like one of the most ethical doctors. He just hates all this like nonsense BS part of the medicine. But people, as you saw, were promoting super hardcore all these IV cures for COVID, and you did a whole investigation on that too.
I went to Florida and I did an investigation about these IVs with stem cells and what are they called? It starts with an E.
Stem cells for COVID?
Yeah,
stem cells for COVID.
Oh yeah, stem cell. They were doing like high dose vitamin C with stem cells, with glutathione, with all these other vitamins. And
Thymosin,
thymosin.
alpha-1.
So the problem is these doctors, what they should it's not, number one is like they're trying to make money off people that are scared, and most of the people that are getting treatments from them are young and healthy and would have been fine on nothing, first of all. But second, and so there's a couple things. The second thing is these things may be harmful. And I think the most important, the first thing we learn as a doctor, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. And we don't when the COVID makes someone get really high fevers and get really sick, it's because the immune system is like too turned on. And so I could easily argue that giving someone stem cells or stimulating their immune system will actually make them worse. And we know a lot of the treatments for COVID are actually steroids, thing that slow down the immune system.
Anti-inflammatory.
Anti-inflammatories. And so how does that doctor know? There's no study or any evidence that that's helpful. It could be harmful, and yet they're selling these things to people.
I know. There's a few plastic surgeons in LA who are selling COVID IV cures and things like that.
I know a few doctors doing it.
Really it's just terrible. It's just fear-mongering and, all profitization of the market.
And the high-dose vitamin C, too. The exosomes, that's super trendy right now. They're not cheap. They're thousands of dollars. I just quoted like $5,000 from a chiropractor. Nothing against chiropractors, but
but they shouldn't be.
Should they be doing stem cell?
No, infusions, no.
And the crazy thing about the stem cells is like that's another industry. Who's regulating it, right? Like how do you? I interview people that they're like some of these live birth, products don't have any live stem cells in them.
That's true too, but they can take stem cells from your hip. And so any doctor can take you in the office and do a little quick procedure in their own room and take your own stem cells and give them to you. And it's very hard to regulate that. I mean, you could just say that procedure is illegal to do without some special training or something. Because it's not as if these are hematologists that are experts on the immune system or stem cells. These are,
Yeah, just regular doctors. Sometimes
not even.
Not even. And the other problem is there's no monetization of it in a large sense. So there can't be a lobby. Like there's not like a product associated with stem cells that everyone has to use. So there's like a $10 billion corporation. It's just each individual practitioner doing it.
Right.
And the labs that they use. And there's been outbreaks. There have been clusters of cases where people got bacterial infections. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
If you're injecting those stem cells or those live tissue products into your body and you don't go to a lab that didn't, like sterilize it enough or put it through enough kinds of testing to take out the genetic material, that could be dangerous.
And what's sad is these things in the right context, these are very exciting, possibly incredibly helpful things that we know in orthopedics where there's a lot of data, it helps joint inflammation, it helps people rebuild, So there's certain things that we know it's incredibly helpful. And there's thoughts it could be helpful for all sorts of other things, anti-aging stuff, but it needs to be studied. People shouldn't just be doing it yet until there's a study. If they're part of a study and they're letting people understand, we don't know, there's no proof that this works or not. There's very ethical orthopedic doctors that say, this is the data we have. It's not clear yet. I think from my set of patients that it tends to help, but it may not. And let's go ahead and do it. And everyone understands that this is unproven. But it's the doctors that are selling it as literally they're posting COVID cure. It's just a very different story.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the studies because another thing that's going on is, clinicaltrials.gov. That is where, you have to register your clinical trial with the FDA or whatever. And and basically there are some stem cell places that would like for-profit stem cell clinics that would register their trial and then make people pay for it. For the record, if you're in a clinical trial, you shouldn't be paying for the treatment, right? So
they're like double dipping.
Yes, exactly. Just to make it look legit. We have it registered in clinicaltrials.gov. It's a legit trial. And now who knows if it was abandoned, right? Because there's so many. If you Google stem cells on there in their search bar, there's hundreds, thousands, stem cell studies. But
take them all down.
So now we're going to play a game with you, Leslie.
Oh, fun. I like this.
Yeah, because you are Lois Lane of Medicine, so you're going to know these.
Okay.
But we're doing true and false. So I'm going to read you headlines of the week, medical headlines. Okay. And you tell me if these are true or false.
Okay.
Okay, so these are just the headlines of the week, and some of them may not be true, so you let me know, okay?
This week?
This week's. Okay. So this one's about health and wellness and beauty. They're saying 56% of men use either hand or body soap to wash their face and don't use a specific facial product.
I think just, I think it's true.
I would say 80%.
Yeah, I feel like that's what men do. It's true.
It's true.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, so they studied this.
You're using hand soap on your face.
I'm using, body soap or whatever.
It's probably like Cetaphil or something good.
Hopefully.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's true. 56% of men, they
Sounds
did a
correct.
poll of about 4,000 people, use literally their whatever soap they have and their availability, hand soap or body soap, and not
Naughty.
using facial products.
That's not good.
Which brings me to the next one. Pharrell, the famous hip hop artist, rapper, producer, has created a new skincare line. True or false?
I think that could be true.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Pharrell has created a new line, which is getting a lot of rave right now. It's called Human Race. And he is basing it on 3 products, putting them together. One's a cleaner, one's an exfoliator, and one's a moisturizer. And he's going after the large demographic market. He is 47 years old, but he looks like he's 20s,
Yes.
right? So that's where everyone
great.
is like,
He does look great.
He looks amazing for
Yeah.
his age.
He must be on stem cells.
Yes. And so, but this is where I would love
Or
to
some
talk.
supplements.
Well, 'cause have you done one on beauty products? Because there's so many celebrity endorsed beauty products that are just, obviously nonsense. So you're just selling the hype of the celebrity.
Yeah.
Have you ever done one on beauty products, an investigation?
Gosh, I've done some on cosmetics, beauty products. I did do like a test where I was like, is this really a miracle in a jar? And we looked, and I had people test it out at like something really cheap versus something really expensive.
Yeah,
and nobody
that's
could tell
cool.
the difference.
Yeah, that's cool.
I haven't really necessarily like thrown any celebrities under the bus.
Yeah, you want to be
Tricky.
careful. Yeah, you want to be
But
careful.
I do think it's crazy how, I don't even want to bring this up because it's old news now, but I mean, the whole olive oil
J-Lo.
gate.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
seriously.
talked about that. Yeah.
J-Lo.
I
when
mean,
J-Lo dropped her product saying the secret of her skin is olive oil.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think the best part of the story is reading people's comments. That will entertain you for hours and hours.
I have a love-hate relationship with the celebrity bashing online because there's a lot of celebrity bashing that happens where they post like the worst photo of a celebrity and then the best photo ever.
not nice.
And they do this. Like a lot of plastic surgeons do this, a lot of dermatologists, of course, because they're using it for marketing, right, for their own business. And I have a love-hate relationship because I understand the transparency they're trying to provide, but I think at the same time they also mimic it and they make it seem like they can do these procedures for the patients.
Yes.
And that's what's annoying because sometimes they're saying that these celebrities got these procedures that I know as a fact, taking care of some of these patients, they have not done certain things. And yet there's these doctors who tout, oh, she had to have gotten thread lift. She always got thread lift. It's like, we take care of some of these people. They did not. That's what I think is the taboo that I hate about the celebrity bashing. But it's a good trick people use. Here's another good one. So Japanese scientists have discovered a mechanism that allows people to get rid of the so-called senescent cells. So it halts the aging process. And they think they could administer this drug and stop the aging process within 5 to 10 years.
So they're gonna make people reverse aging by 5 to 10 years, or they're gonna stop it?
No, it'll take, once you start taking the medication within 5 to 10 years, you will stop
fake.
aging. It's true.
Okay.
It's true. They're saying use of anti-aging drugs could possibly begin in 5 to 10 years. Japanese scientists have been studying this at the University of Tokyo, and they're going after the senescent cells because those are the cells that as they age, break down, and that's what makes your body age. So they're trying to see if there's a way to keep that. The other thing they're studying a lot is the
They always say
telomeres.
they're
The telomeres.
They
the end
always
of
say they're gonna-
The end of the
the
telomeres.
strand.
Unwinding.
I don't believe it.
I've been following the story about telomeres for about a decade.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we are yet with
Right.
telomeres.
Nowhere. That's where we are.
I think
We're at the very end of the piece of
There you
strand of
go.
DNA. That's where we are.
I
is a
think the most
telomere
interesting
gel.
is like the medication for what is it?
Metformin?
Yeah, metformin
for diabetes.
and I think that's
And
interesting.
rapamycin.
Rapamycin,
And there was
yes.
a dog trial I did a story on about how they were giving dogs rapamycin, and I talked to the main lead scientist, and I was like, "Hey, do you take rapamycin?" Like off the record, and he's like, "Yeah, I do."
Wait,
and
can
I
you
was,
explain what is rapamycin?
Rapamycin is a drug that it's kind of like an anti-cancer drug,
Okay.
but it slows the cell cycle.
Mhm.
It's an mTOR inhibitor.
So
and
the thought is that it could be anti-aging.
So
Yes.
they give it, actually, I think rapamycin was given to people that had organ transplants. So the body, didn't
Anti-rejection
reject
drug.
the
Okay, got it, got
organs.
it.
And so they're trying it on dogs. And
Wow.
I know there's a cottage group of people that are taking it. And there's this
Wow.
one doctor in Queens, I think, in New York, I had a call with him. He's like 85. And he has people flying all over the country to see him. And he puts them on a protocol with rapamycin.
The whole thing is
Wow.
really interesting. The
It's
drug drug was
interesting.
discovered really interestingly also on Easter Island, where they have those crazy sculpture statues.
Yeah,
Someone found it in the ground there.
The soil.
And the people are the Rapa Nui people. So it's called Rapamycin.
Wow.
It's fascinating.
That is
And
fascinating.
then now it's like making us not
So
die.
you're prescribing this now?
I'm reading about it.
Okay.
It's for sure on my radar. People are interested in these types of things. I don't know. Again, I'm very data driven in terms of not wanting to harm someone. So I don't know if it could inadvertently cause some other problem that we're not aware of at the moment. So I'm a little hesitant. Metformin, I have so much experience prescribing for other reasons, and I understand the metabolic effect. So if there happens to be some anti-aging effect to it, so if someone's like borderline pre-diabetic or something, there's a lot of other reasons why I may have this person on it anyway. So I feel a lot better about it. The rapamycin thing is a little more, it's like, it's in the room, but not quite reaching for it yet. I'm still trying to figure it out.
And here's a good one. All right. Pigs at the San Diego Zoo are the first non-humans to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
Gosh, you're trying to trick me here, but it actually sounds like it could be no.
False?
Yeah.
It is false.
Okay.
It's gorillas.
That makes more sense.
The gorillas have now been vaccinated at San Diego Zoo. They're the first non-humans who have been vaccinated. The gorillas.
I love the San Diego Zoo. Great place.
It's like the best zoo. That's what San Diego's known for.
Yeah,
it's great.
Most famous, iconic place.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it. You guys haven't watched it yet. By the time this airs, maybe we all have. Meghan Markle interview today
I haven't
came
watched
out
it yet.
on Sunday.
Is she having an interview?
Yeah, she's releasing all of her steam.
Really?
Well, yeah, against the world's most famous family.
Is it against the family or just against the whole culture of everyone being so interested in them?
Isn't that the same?
Yeah, I feel like it's you can't do one without the other.
Yeah,
right? It's kind of like, well, I'm going to throw them under the bus. I'm going to throw the whole industry
Yeah,
under the
whole
bus.
thing gets thrown. And it's just tough because for the family, all they want is for this interview to not happen.
Of course.
There's no part
God.
of
They're
them.
having a lot of problems, the family this year.
Yeah, it's been a tough year.
Ghislaine Maxwell has something for the family too, I think.
Oh, you think? Is that
Well, what's the other guy's name? The brother?
I know you're talking about who used to hang out with Epstein.
Epstein.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot coming.
Yeah, interesting. Well, this interview will be interesting. By the time this airs, most people have already
gonna
watched
watch
it.
it.
So, yeah.
What's
Is
it
it
on?
tonight? Is it on?
I think today, Oprah. It's on.
This just goes to show our different interests because I'm like really excited about the NBA dunk contest and All-Star game.
Yeah, which is today.
And all the dumb boy things that I like.
Well, I saw all the memes this weekend. They're like, if your girl's in Atlanta, she's not for you this weekend because it's All-Star weekend.
That's amazing.
That's funny.
It seems kind of true.
Very true.
Exciting stuff.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much,
thanks for
It was
coming.
Leslie.
amazing.
Yeah,
I had
thank
such
you.
a good time with you guys. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. And you're sharing such great insight. I mean, it's crazy what you do. And I think that you are just at the beginning of your illustrious
thank
career
you.
on air and behind the scenes. But behind the scenes, you're fantastic. But on air, I think you're even better. So
Oh my gosh, thank you
huge
so
fan,
much.
Huge
We
fan.
can
I
just see
appreciate
one
it.
day her producing our show when we're, prime
Yeah,
time.
we need to get a little bigger for
Prime
Leslie to
time
be
is
part of our
producing
show.
here.
I'll start taking notes.
No,
you guys
thank
are
you
killing
so
it.
much.
I
Thank
think
you
it's,
so
it's
much
a great
for coming.
podcast. So
Thank
thank you for
you.
having me.
Thank
It's
you.
a
Our
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you. All right. Well, that was great.
What did we learn today? Did we learn
A lot.
anything important?
A lot.
I think be careful who's giving you stem cells is a good one.
Yep. Don't take gas station pills.
No gas station pills.
Yeah.
Or at least the brand names that you recognize. If there's a package that you don't recognize of colorful pills
Yeah.
that will say that they can boost your memory, concentration,
Yeah. If it has the word sex on it, don't buy it.
the sex pills.
Don't buy it.
I think most of those the ones that say like, concentration boost, they're probably, it's just like trace levels of amphetamines. They just put real stuff in these things or like something that you probably don't want to have.
Right. And that has definitely not been regulated.
Definitely not. So avoid those. Just get the gum and get out of there.
Yes. Yeah. Great tip. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah,
Continue
thanks for
sharing,
listening.
liking. Share this one with friends and family who want to learn about the dark side of medicine and
if you
how
have-
we have superheroes like Leslie out there
And
saving
if you
us.
have questions for us or for Leslie, or if you're a doctor and you want to get on the doctor show, you could hit us up, and we probably won't pass your name along to Leslie, but you could try. So
We don't get to decide that anyways, but have a great time, guys. Thank you for listening.